is up, Willie? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. How are you, Jimmy?
Oh, I am doing awesome. Thank you. It's been a nice quiet week. Just been chilling, hanging out, doing some stuff. My sister came over, helped organize and clean up a little bit. So just been
Okay.
doing all of that.
All right. All right. Well, yeah,
How are
same
you?
old. I'm just gonna say same old with me. Work, home, sleep. I mean, that's kind of and an occasional stream here and there.
Yep, yep. Occasional stream here and there. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Well,
I
good.
actually made an attempt to have a regular streaming schedule. And I'm going to try to work on that. Hopefully, in the next week or two. I'm going to try to. Whether I succeed or not remains to be seen.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
awesome. So
yeah.
that's good. Then you start having a regular streaming schedule. People will know when you're on. That'll be awesome.
I think it would be awesome. I used to have kind of when I first started doing this, I was like every other. It was like every other day, and then just everything went wrong in the last several months here, where it's just been kind of rough on me, and
Yeah.
I don't see any sign of it getting any better. I thought it was going to get better after the holidays, but oh well.
No, not getting any better.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it's okay.
has been
I
a
mean,
crazy new year though. So
well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happened. I'm hoping for hoping for something better, but we'll see with the way that our crazy world is.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna get any better.
Yeah.
uh in funny news, Stanley Cups are like the newest rage in this country right now. I stole my daughter's knockoff Stanley Cup.
Right. Let's see. What you drinking anyway?
It's coffee.
Just
Definitely coffee for sure. Yeah. Man, these Stanley Cups are just everywhere right now. All the kids are getting them in different colors. They're just collecting them. It's like Beanie Babies, but those cups, they just are loving them. And I even saw like a TikTok video where the girl shellacked the label that comes on it so that way the label doesn't get messed up. It's wild. It's crazy the trend of these cups right now, which if anybody doesn't know, Stanley Cup or Stanley used to make thermoses like way back in the day, like 1950s and stuff. My grandma used to have a tortoise shell green one, and I'm like contemplating whether or not I want to get a hold of my aunt to see if it's still at her house, out where, because my aunt still owns my grandma's house, even though my grandma passed away like 15 years ago.
right.
Um, but still, I want to see if she has that thermos, because those things are starting to come back in style now that Stanley's back in style. Apparently, Stanley stopped making the thermoses and are making these cups now with the straws attached to them, and the kids are having a field day. So I
Maybe
want to walk around with the old thermos. That'd be fun.
might be a collector's item.
Yeah, I'm wondering like what's the price, the stock price on or how much are thermoses going for on eBay right now, like original OGs. Like I could make a couple G's off of that thermos right now.
You never know. Because I know there's like I don't have cable anymore, and unfortunately, it requires cable to have PBS around here. But there used to be a show where they'll have like a what is perceived as junk to some people, with is another man's treasure, and
Mhm.
you might have stuff around the house that's like worth thousands that you don't even think twice about.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's why that show, that, like, auctioning show, the Auction Road or something like that, that's why it was so popular, is because people were hoping while they were watching it that just some random junk item that they have in their house would show up on that show and be worth $1 million. Everybody loves that. They wanna catch that quick money break, so I get it, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, I'm holding on to some stuff, maybe hopefully for it to increase in price one day. For sure I am.
Yeah, I inherited a bunch of furniture um, from when my grandmother died in 2018. So there's a lot of furniture that I've inherited from her. That was, that just. and I'm thinking there's probably some crap in here that's worth something. So, and it's funny, when she died, they went through her place, my parents, and she's a product of the depression. So she was probably always worried about banks failing. They found socks throughout her house, filled with like a fistful of $20 bills.
Oh shit.
I mean, there was like several $1,000s that they found, like, in just the weirdest places.
Oh, that's great.
Sometimes I go into that house looking around. I mean, I'll be searching. I was searching
I
that
would
house.
too.
It's like, if there's another sock full of $20 bills, worth several $1,000s in there. I mean, it's going to be my. It was like close to $10,000 they found.
God damn. That's
Yeah.
so cool. That's
I mean,
so
I
cool.
wouldn't have taken it if she would have been alive, but if I in visiting, I would have been like, wow, you know,
Right, right. Like,
yeah,
grandma left this for me. How nice.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, when I
Uh,
get a little bit of free time, I think I'm gonna go back to that old house, and it's still around. I mean,
Start pillaging some more.
yeah, they haven't sold it yet. So
Oh, that's so funny.
yeah. So anyway, I found a story that I would love to share with everybody, and I like to know what you think about it.
Okay, let's bring it up. Yeah, let's see what it is. Share screen. Okay. Former clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses must pay $260,000 in fees and costs. Oh,
Yeah,
this lady.
you remember her?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. Lexington, Kentucky. This is from Associated Press from January 2nd this year. Said former county clerk Kim Davis, who refused to issue marriage license in Kentucky to same-sex couples, must pay a total of $260,104 in fees and expenses to attorneys who represented one couple, according to a federal judge's ruling. That's in addition to $100,000 in damages. A jury said, for former Rowan County clerk should pay the couple who sued. Attorneys for Davis had argued that the fees and costs sought by the attorneys were excessive, but the U.S. District Judge David L. Bunning disagreed and said Davis must pay, since the men prevailed in their lawsuits. The Lexington Herald leader reported. Attorneys for Davis were expecting to appeal the rulings. Davis drew international attention when she was briefly jailed in 2015 over her refusal, which she based on her beliefs that marriage should only be between a man and a woman. Davis was released only after her staff issued a license and on her behalf, but removed her name from the form. Kentucky state legislature enacted a law removing the names of all county clerks from state marriage license. So that's pretty much the gist of it there. And um, just wondering what is your take on it, because I have all kinds of thoughts about it.
Um, I guess yeah. I guess that's good. I mean, it is what it is. So who is she having to pay back?
Okay, the $100,000 is for the same-sex couple that sued. Is she has to pay, and then what was that, 260,000 to the attorneys and all of that. So
Okay.
my take is this: I don't feel any pity for her.
No, I think this is a good learning lesson on all sides. Uh, Corporation, if you're a business, I don't think that your personal religious beliefs should be involved in your business whatsoever, 100%. Also, at the same time, I do think that if you're a couple and that business, like let's say you're a same sex couple, like in this situation, and you know that that business is going to do that to you, not give you service based off of, who you love or whatever. Um, I guess just go somewhere else, and I mean, this would have never even been a thing, if she just would have not brought her religion in, and they would have just not made it a big deal, and gone somewhere else and said, "Oh, well, she's, homophobic," like that whole typical thing, like, "Oh, this business is homophobic, let's not go there." And so that community just doesn't shop there, and then she's hurt financially that way. This turned into what? This was in 2015, you said? This turned into an 8-year debacle over where everybody ends up were in this pretty much the same position as they were beforehand. I mean, practically. So I just feel like I hope everybody learned a lesson on this where, yeah, and I don't want to repeat myself.
Yeah, no problem. This is my take on it. She was clearly in the wrong.
Right.
She's a bigot. I have
Yeah.
absolutely zero respect for her.
Right.
The only way I could have felt little empathy for her if she had people under her. She basically ordered them not to grant the license. She didn't have to
Right.
do it herself. If it was her religious conscience bothering her, she could have had somebody else do it for her. And she didn't have to be involved. But she basically decided to invoke Christian Sharia in it was at Rowan County, and basically said she does not want, she fundamentally will do everything she can to stop a same-sex couple from getting married. It's none of her damn business what she
Hmm.
wants. She's entitled to her thoughts. She's entitled to, she's entitled to be a bad person
Right.
in her thoughts. She's not entitled to have her bad thoughts and tendencies infringe on the rights of other people.
Right. Isn't she just like a cake owner? Wasn't it about a cake?
Oh, that's separate. There was a cake decorator that a same-sex couple sought to bake a wedding cake, and
Oh, so this isn't the cake lady?
no, this is no. She was the county clerk that was supposed to register deeds type position where she grant license to same-sex couples.
Oh, well, then if she has that kind of business, she shouldn't even be in that work
Yeah,
at all whatsoever. She shouldn't even have applied or even been hired because of her religious beliefs. I thought she was the cake lady because I was like, I'm sitting here hoping everybody learns a lesson. She shouldn't bring her religion into cake baking. And if you know that this lady's baking a cake and she's homophobic, tell all your friends not to go get that cake from that lady. I didn't know that she was registering marriage licenses
yeah, yeah.
based off of her religion. That's even worse.
That's basically the controversy right there. She's a public employee. She
Yeah.
has no right to discriminate against anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, honestly, I mean, now like for example, I was long for same sex marriage before everybody else were, and if a church don't want to do it, that's on them. But but there are plenty of churches that would actually do it, thankfully too. So that's a private institution. So in that regard, I wouldn't want to force people, especially even if they have reactionary thoughts, because that's a slippery slope right there on the First Amendment. However,
Mhm.
um, someone like Kim Davis, I again, I have no respect. I have no pity for her. She brought it on herself, and it didn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is that what this lady's name is? Is Kim Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, she definitely brought this on herself. She shouldn't have done this as a public employee, especially a governmental public employee. It like unlike the cake story, these same-sex couples don't have anywhere else to go to get their marriage licenses. This is something that's by law they're able to do. Yeah, it's bad. And I hate sounding like a fucking Democrat, but I'm just saying if Trump becomes president, he's gonna make shit like this to where the religious people are going to have all the rights and are going to win everything because he's on like this Christian path. So that's crazy. At least we're getting some. At least this couple is getting some sort of justice with this. I mean, did they end up getting their license and they got married and everything?
I'm sure they did because by that time, same-sex marriage was legal in all 50 states.
Okay. So good. So then
Yeah.
they ended up getting their justice, 8 years of life wasted, and they got $260,000, well, $100,000 off of it. And
Now I have
now
a
she has to pay all this money.
I had a friend back. It was in 2012. He's a gay man, and he's a minister, and he told me that if there's somebody that is against it, um who's in clergy, he may not sit there and jump down their throats about it, but he said, I'm certainly not going to respect their position on it. And he was absolutely, I was like, Dwight, you're absolutely correct. So,
Yeah.
and I'm referring to Dwight Welch. He's been a guest on my show before, several times. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. So I
All
guess we
right. Okay, so I'm gonna go with my first one, which is pretty much what I think is probably the biggest story of this week. And I've got a couple of videos, like little short videos to kind of discuss and talk about it. But this week, uh, I thought was really, really, really awesome was South Africa put up a case against Israel at the ICJ. And so I we'll start off with a piece of her speech presented at the ICJ against Israel.
The first genocidal act committed
Hey, y'all in the chat.
by Israel is the mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza, in violation of Article 2A of the Genocide Convention. As the UN Secretary General explained 5 weeks ago, the level of Israel's killing is so extensive that nowhere is safe in Gaza. As I stand before you today, 23,210 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces during the sustained attacks over the last 3 months. At least 70% of whom are believed to be women and children. Some 7,000 Palestinians are still missing, presumed dead under the rubble. Palestinians in Gaza are subjected to relentless bombing wherever they go. They are killed in their homes, in places where they seek shelter, in hospitals, in schools, in mosques, in churches, and as they try to find food and water for their families. They have been killed if they failed to evacuate. In the places to which they have fled, and even while they attempted to flee along Israeli-declared safe routes. The level of killing is so extensive that those whose bodies are found are buried in mass graves, often unidentified. In the first 3 weeks alone, following 7 October, Israel deployed 6,000 bombs per week. At least 200 times it has deployed 2,000-pound bombs in southern areas of Palestine designated as safe.
Mm-hmm.
These bombs have also decimated the north, including refugee camps. 2,000-pound bombs are some of the biggest and most destructive bombs available. They are dropped by lethal fighter jets that are used to strike targets on the ground by one of the world's most resourced armies. Israel has killed an unparalleled and unprecedented number of civilians, with the full knowledge of how many civilian lives each bomb will take. More than 1,800 families, Palestinian families in Gaza, have lost multiple family members, and hundreds of multi-generational families have been wiped out, with no remaining survivors. Mothers, fathers, children, siblings, grandparents, aunts, cousins, often all killed together. This killing is nothing short of destruction of Palestinian life. It is inflicted deliberately. No one is spared, not even newborn babies. The scale of Palestinian child killings in Gaza is such that UN chiefs have described it as a graveyard for children. The devastation, we submit, is intended.
Okay, so that's some of the speech that she had given. There's a little thing that's going around the internet that was kind of trending, was the closing statement of they're saying four really hard-hitting bullet points is: each day 247 Palestinians are being killed, one every 6 minutes, 48 mothers every 2 hours, 117 children every 5 hours, and then each day 10 children. This is the hardest one to have to deal with. Every day 10 children are going to be amputated without anesthetic, completely feeling it, losing, having to have an arm or a leg or multiples, being amputated, fully feeling everything. These, I heard a story or something on the news this morning that this woman, I think it was on the Majority Report, this woman who has family in Palestine, in Gaza, was saying that these children are experiencing such traumatic events that are so overwhelming that there are children out there that are dying of cardiac arrest. They can't handle, physically cannot handle the trauma that they are experiencing, and are having heart attacks. Children out there right now, not including the bombing and the starving and everything else that they're having to deal with, but the trauma itself is giving these children heart attacks. It's insane.
It's evil. I mean, it is. I
Absolutely.
don't see how anybody could sit there. I'm boggled by people who are defending this action.
Right.
I honestly, and as I have stated once again, any life on either side that dies, it's one life too many on both sides.
I agree.
But the response by Israel is so overwhelmingly massive. I mean, I'm they have done shitty things in the past, but I have never seen anything to this level that they have done. I mean, to this day. I mean, and they've
Right.
done a lot of horrible things in the past, but and and I don't understand how our government, you know, uh, well, the difference between a Trump response and a Biden response is, Trump will make his awful speech about one drop of blood. It will be met with 1 gallon of blood or something like that. I don't know if you remember him saying that a couple of weeks ago. Oh,
No,
that was it was over the top.
that's
Um,
interesting.
and someone like Joe Biden, he'd be like, you can respond, but try to be polite about it. It's it's genocide either way.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. I agree.
yeah. I mean, and I just it's so horrible. I'm speechless sometimes when I hear, and the children, they're even the children that they manage not to die or be amputated or whatever. The trauma is so severe.
Yeah.
Israel's creating new terrorists. I mean, it's easy. If people become terrorists, Israel is the cause of it.
Right. I agree. I agree. And
Yeah.
then you were saying how, people are talking that shouldn't be talking. That this was absolutely ridiculous to me. I can't believe he even was out here saying anything. But this thumb looking motherfucker right here decided to talk about what South Africa was saying, and you decided to talk about South Africa's case against Israel. So here's his little speech that went viral as well this week about that situation.
Who are they really fighting? It's a group of cowards. They hide in tunnels. They hide behind civilians. They attack, kill, and mutilate children, women, and they do that. Stop talking about proportion on that. They shot their best shot on October 7th, and they would have taken more lives if they couldn't do that, but they couldn't do it. And now let's also talk about that. Now we're talking about genocide. And now South Africa is bringing that kind of a trial. Maybe South Africa maybe ought to sit this one out when they're talking about criticizing. Sit it out. Who are we?
You hear him? Like, he acts like he's such a tough dude. Like, you were just in the hospital like a year ago, bro. So why don't you sit this one out a little bit? I think all the whatever fucking beams are coming out of the lights that are shining onto his head and soaking into his skin are starting to get into his brain.
You know what's so sad about it is he's a disappointment. I mean,
He is.
he is. I mean, I actually in 2022 he was probably the only Democrat I was like, oh, I kind of hope he beats Dr. Oz. Back then. I mean, I was just thinking. I was thinking. Oh, he'll be like the second most left wing senator, second to Bernie Sanders, and he's as disappointing as Bernie Sanders is. He's not even as good as Bernie Sanders at being as disappointed as he is now. He's not even and it's kind of like he decided he's no longer progressive and he decided to become a centrist and all of that. And fool everybody by dressing up in basketball shorts and a hoodie and all that. That's not fooling anybody.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
No. Fuck him.
Yeah.
I got no respect for him now.
No. Yeah, I'm over it. That motherfucker, man. I was trying to be nice, but he literally looks like a fucking caveman. Like, his entire family's generation has never evolved whatsoever.
Oh, good Lord. There was a video by, are you familiar with Jacqueline Glenn?
Sounds familiar?
Yeah. She did a video on this really deranged pro-Trump supporter in 2016. And the guy in the car, I'll have to forward it to you when we're done here. He looks just like John Fetterman, but he's like a Republican and all of that. And if you look at the video, he's going on in a car driving around talking about basically verbally sucking off of Trump's cock. I mean, honestly, tell everybody how great Trump is. He looked just like John Fetterman, and he had the anger management. It's a funny video. And he's making fun of him.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to look into that. So yeah, continuing on with this. So Israel decided to reply to the case that South Africa has made against them, and it broke like way butt fuck early this morning with their speech against it. But we gotta listen to it and watch it, or because it's pretty interesting. They're pretty much saying that South Africa, who is literally just trying to stop an apartheid, I'm pretty sure there's no other country or continent even that would know more about apartheid than Africa, is trying to side with the Palestinians and saying that they're doing a genocide. But these guys are going to go say that South Africa is Hamas. Like, the ones that are doing the apartheid in a country are telling the ones who have dealt with apartheid in a country that they are the bad guys. It's just peak irony. I feel like we are just in like a world within a world within a world within a world now. I don't really feel like this is even much of reality anymore. So we'll listen to this.
If there are any provisional measures that should appropriately be indicated here, they are indeed with respect to South Africa. It is a matter of public record that South Africa enjoys close relations with Hamas, despite its formal recognition as a terrorist organization by numerous states across the world. These relations have continued unabated even after the October 7th atrocities. South Africa has long hosted and celebrated its ties with Hamas figures, including a senior Hamas delegation that incredibly visited the country for a, quote, solidarity gathering just weeks after the massacre. In justifying instituting proceedings, South Africa makes much of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. It seems fitting then that it be instructed to comply with those obligations itself, to end its own language of delegitimization of Israel's existence, end its support for Hamas, and use its influence with this organization so that Hamas permanently ends its campaign of genocidal terror.
It's absolutely you're absolutely right, Rick. It was the but Hamas. Like there's been so many interesting videos that has been coming out of him saying that kind of stuff just today. Like I saw a video where the woman was saying like there's a genocide in Palestine, but Hamas, they're bombing or they're taking our ships out in the Red Sea, but Hamas, we ran out of milk. Where is or do we need to go to the store? But Hamas. It's like I lost my car keys, but Hamas.
And honestly, the the thing about it is Hamas, Israel, Israel themselves nurtured and created Hamas, and is Israel's fault what Hamas is doing because they were the one they didn't want the PLO to be to basically have a seat in the table with influence because back in those days PLO orbited around the Soviets and it was like a Cold War measure to try to destroy it by replacing secular leftism with a more fundamentalist brand, which Hamas is, and that's the Mossad that was doing that. And so Israel's getting their version of blowback. The 9/11 report, Ron Paul basically said, well, we're getting blowback from U.S. policy abroad. Well, this is what Israel's done the same thing, and they're suffering because of it. But you know what? The suffering is the Palestinian people in the Gaza. I mean, with the children.
And now with the expansion, though, it's even worse. We got Twitter. World War III was trending on Twitter this morning now, and it's wild. It's such a weird irony, like this. Bring the whole thing back to a circle when, like, as a content creator now for quite some time. I was just going through all the old videos from KRTD, and I think last year I saw videos when I was organizing them from last year, maybe a little bit over a year ago, where I was talking about free Palestine, and then another video where it says, "Are we going to be in a World War III because of Ukraine and Russia?" It's just like every year as we get this fear of a World War III every time, and I just saw it trending again today.
I do fear World War III. I kind of don't think we're at that point yet, but I do fear it. But what it could be, and it's still not a good situation. Rather than World War III, we might be getting the second Cold War, because between China and Russia, it has an alliance, and then you counterbalance it with the U.S. and NATO. It could be that. And during the Cold War, we had skirmishes around the world. I mean, I remember counting of like 26 wars one time in the 1980s. I kind of did some research in high school. I was like, there are actually 26 conflicts going on around the world right now. So it's not ideal, but if it's if we're having a second Cold War, where we won't directly be affected by it, but it's unfortunate for those that will be, and I don't know.
It feels like, I don't know, it feels like, I mean, it always, every time there's an expansion and stuff, it feels like it could be the next World War. I mean, the whole Red Sea thing and us bombing Yemen over, economic, like them not being able to do trade routes there and stuff, and adding them into it right along with other countries. It just, the whole fear of World War III is just coming back around again. And I feel like every year we have this fear of World War III because of something or another, And it always feels like it's real too. Another really funny, ironic thing that I saw this morning as well when I was looking at the updates about this whole situation was some of the countries that were a part of South Africa's little thing that they did against Israel. Some countries got to say whether or not they were, agreeing with South Africa or not agreeing with South Africa with the apartheid and the genocide and stuff. And it was just so funny to me that South Africa claims that Israel is doing a genocide, and one of the countries that sided with Israel and didn't agree with South Africa was Germany, of all places. Can you, like, how ironic is that? The South Africa saying Israel is doing a genocide, and Germany comes in saying no, they're not. Like, Germany, I think you need to sit this one out, buddy. I think you really need to sit this one out.
I think I can explain why Germany had the attitude that they had, because which is weird, because actually I saw some Antifa people in Berlin with Israeli flags and all of that. And I think that the reason is that in Germany there is extreme guilt from what happened in the Holocaust, and I think it's their way of coping. I mean, I don't agree with it. I'm just explaining why I think I think it's more psychological and all of that. They don't want to look like they're, they don't want to look like, in their minds, they don't want to be perceived in a negative way. And that's not the way to go about it, but it explains that. But it's interesting. I remember when Nelson Mandela was freed in 1990, and they were, the right wing in this country gave him a hard time because he embraced Castro, Gaddafi, and Arafat. And it's like, well, Israel was in close partnership with the apartheid government in South Africa, and the United States weren't really giving a shit about what was happening to Black people in South Africa. What is Nelson Mandela going to do? Tell these people that that I don't want your help? I mean, referring to Gaddafi, Arafat, and Castro. I mean,
Right.
just kind of like, they were trying to smear him and they were trying to discredit him. I remember that at that time, and I'm just kind of like, no. He had every right to feel the way he felt, regardless of whatever anybody may think of Castro or Gaddafi or Arafat. I mean, I don't blame him.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm right there with you. And then one final thing I want to say too is just with this whole us getting into a bigger fight with the Middle East and all the conflicts that are starting to arise even more and more and more. I just want to say a really funny joke really quick that in case anybody forgot, a few years ago, some website somewhere did a poll to the GOP Republican voters. And what it was okay, so 30%, just so you guys know, 30% of GOP voters supported bombing Agrabah. And Agrabah, just so everybody knows, is actually a fictional place set in the cartoon Disney movie Aladdin. It's not a real place. So I'm just letting you know that the further we get into this war, there's 30% of Republican voters out there that want to bomb a non-realistic Disney movie cartoon city in the Middle East. So I'm just saying.
Can I you just reminded me of a quick thing I just remember seeing one time. Somebody was asking, it was kind of like a gotcha they were trying to do a gotcha at Obama over what happened with what's the name of that incident? Good Lord, what was it called? The incident where the Americans died in the embassy in Libya. Oh my goodness, what is it called?
Oh my goodness, I can't remember.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, Benghazi. Yeah. So what happened was somebody was asking some Republicans about it, some Republican voter. He said, well, Benghazi was an ally of the United States and we turned our back on him. I'm like, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
that's what we're dealing with, with
Yep.
I mean,
Yep. That's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Absolutely. Thank you, Shake and Bacon, for that. What's up, buddy? Haven't seen you in a minute. Good to see you.
yeah.
That's all I have for that whole South Africa thing. I'm sorry, that was a lot, but man, that was like the biggest thing for me this week, is just seeing all of it. I think we've been waiting for somebody to put up a case against Israel with doing genocides. We were hoping somebody would. I think the best place to do that is South Africa, and they're doing it. There's some academics out there that are saying it's probably nothing's going to come of it. But at least it's out there. I really have lost kind of all kinds of hope, or any kind of hope for any kind of good outcome for the suffering of the people of Palestine, or Yemen now too, and Congo, and all these places that everybody's really starting to kind of see and are opening their eyes to. I don't know. I've lost a lot of hope. So
Yeah, same here. Let's see. I think I might want to go with the story from a streamer. He's called Road Grimes, but he has a show called Politics, about the Republican woke mob.
okay.
Like the last one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
I don't know if you've noticed lately, but the Republicans have suddenly become AOC. Like, they're suddenly, we need to censor views we disagree with, and college campuses need to be silenced, and anyone who says something that I disagree with is anti-Semitic. And, it's it's gotten a little bit funny. And Kanye, what do you have to say about it?
ADL is played out. Nobody knows who the ADL are. Stop giving them attention. Nobody cares about the ADL.
What
no
else?
one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
No, I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
So I wanted to start this segment by showing you a clip of the Republicans recently, and what they're trying to do to silence protests. And we warned the left about this when the Republicans were crying about censorship the last couple of years. Like, hey, this is going to be weaponized against you eventually. And lo and behold, what do we have going on right now with Palestine and with the skirmish in the Middle East? We have protesters having the same tactics weaponized again. I just had a TikTok video pulled down the other day for being critical of the skirmish in the Middle East. Let's call it that. But watch this.
This is a very important day. On the House Education and Workforce Committee, we're about to have an incredibly important hearing addressing the rise of anti-Semitism on our college campuses and universities. Joining us today to share their personal stories, we have four incredibly brave students: Talia, Bella, Eyal, and Jonathan. Jewish students, faculty, and communities at these so-called elite institutions, including my alma mater, Harvard, Jewish students are facing sustained attacks from students and professors who are openly propagandizing terror. And why? Merely because these Jewish students exist.
Okay. Sustained attacks is basically people expressing a viewpoint that they don't want to hear. That's it. That's what the sustained attacks are. No one is hitting anyone. No one is bombing or shooting anyone. Just expressing opinions that are not, what's the best word to use? Not comfortable for these people is an attack against them. That's what they're doing. You know who else did that? AOC. Anyway, keep listening.
In response, campus leadership has cowered to the woke anti-Semitic mob.
Okay, this is the part I love the most, is how they're trying to paint woke as being anti-Semitic. 5 minutes ago, these were the people trying to cancel you for being anti-Semitic or being Nazis or whatever, insurrectionists. And now you're trying to cancel them for being anti-Semites. You're literally the same people that you made fun of and warned us about a couple of weeks ago.
This fanaticism against Israel is rooted in ignorance and hatred. Our institutions of higher education are failing our next generation. They are failing Talia, Bella, Eyal, Jonathan, and countless other students. The attacks.
Poor Jonathan had to hear that Palestine was and Israel was an apartheid state. Someone said that to him. Do you know how painful it is to hear that for Jonathan? He's lived his entire life in a bubble.
On October 7th, shocked the conscience of the world, marking the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. However, these atrocities were met with callous cruelty at universities across America.
No, they were not met with callous cruelty. Everyone agrees that October 7th was horrible and a tragedy and an act of terrorism. Innocent civilians were targeted. Now, the details of how they were killed are a little dicey at the moment. And the fog of war sometimes obscures what happened. And I'm not going to go much deeper than that because I don't want to have my shit shut off. But this idea that this is, oh my, anyway, let's just keep listening. I'll shut up.
America. At Harvard, 30 radical student organizations disgustingly blamed Israel for the barbaric attacks against innocent Israelis, only for the group's actions to be brazenly defended by Harvard President Claudine Gay as, quote, free expression.
Do these people have any, like, you know that these people aren't this stupid? That's what's so revealing about this is these people have like law degrees and shit. They know what they're doing. They're playing dumb. They know they're being inconsistent. They know that 5 minutes ago they were on the other side of this fence, and now they just want to comfortably jump the fence and start pointing fingers and act like they weren't just on the other side of it. And it's we can see through this, lady. Like, I know you're smarter than this. And I know that there's a money hand up your ass and you're a puppet. And
following our remarks today, the students will join my colleagues at the Education and Workforce Committee hearing, where Harvard, MIT, and Penn's leadership will likely defend desperately their indefensible recent actions and the campus culture that has enabled anti-Semitism on their campuses. Any voice who openly defends the massacre of innocents has chosen the side of terrorism. I continue to demand.
So find me a person that's openly defending the massacre of innocents. No one is openly defending that. And this is like when Ron Paul said that 9/11 was blowback. People lost their minds, but he was right. No one wants to go, okay, why did this happen? That's the problem, right? Why? Yes, what Hamas did was absolutely horrible, and they killed civilians, and it's terrorism. But why did they do it? They didn't just wake up one day and go like, hey, we hate Jewish people, let's do this. Like, it's not that simple. And this lady knows that it's not that simple.
Demand that Harvard President Claudine Gay resign and that Harvard and schools like it are prohibited from collecting taxpayer dollars.
See, and this is the
today.
thing that we warned y'all about, where they're literally defunding the people whose opinions they disagree with. They're making sure that this is a crackdown to keep college students from being able to say things that they don't want to hear. And it's fucking insane that people didn't see this before. Now, the plus side of all of this, of course, is that the people who 5 minutes ago were, defending censorship on behalf of the state are now like going, oh shit, now they're using it against us. And hopefully a lot of the people who are, protesting an end to what a lot of people are referring to now as a genocide. Hopefully people that are doing that are waking up to the fact that, hey, this principle doesn't just apply to you. Remember COVID, when you said anyone that, had some skepticism was a quote unquote anti-vaxxer? Now do you get it? Now do you get it? I hope so. The smarter ones will. But, the tribal nature of these debates has just made it ridiculous. So Let's watch this other clip of one of your favorite people
Older with
employing
Representative
this
Roger
same tactic.
Williams. And that's when we start to see that this issue is not about one incident. It is cultural. It is a culture of lack of impunity, of accepting of violence and violent language against women, and an entire structure of power that supports that. Because not only have I been spoken to disrespectfully, particularly by members of the Republican Party and elected officials in the Republican Party, not just here, but the President of the United States last year told me to go home to another country, with the implication that I don't even belong in America. The governor of Florida, Governor DeSantis, before I even was sworn in, called me a whatever that is.
Oh my God. That's almost as terrible as poor Jonathan, who had to hear that someone say that Israel might be an apartheid state. It's so terrible, AOC. See how these people sound exactly the same?
Dehumanizing language.
Weaponizing the HR department to protect them from views they don't want to hear. I mean, AOC could literally, these misogynist dudes that are saying, you know, anti whatever shit to him, she could just go on the floor and say, like, look at how caveman and backwards these people are. They sound like they're from the 1950s or something. Like their brains are still stuck in that era. But she'll go and cheer for the deplatforming of the president because he said something mean to her.
Is not new. And what we are seeing is that incidents like these are happening in a pattern. This is a pattern of an attitude towards women and dehumanization of others. So while I was not deeply hurt or offended by little comments that are made, when I was reflecting on this, I honestly thought that I was just going to pack it up and go home. It's just another day, right? But then yesterday, Representative Yoho decided to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and make excuses for his behavior. And that I could not let go. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls that I go home to, I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that.
We must
to see that
everyone's ears from speech they find
and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate.
So it's interesting to me that these conservatives who 5 minutes ago were making fun of AOC for this and rightfully calling her out for cheering for the deplatforming of Tucker Carlson as if that was some great thing. Now they are those people. They sound just like AOC.
A letter she sent out to her followers like in 2021. Right-wing operatives with millions of followers on social media are spreading flat-out lies and misleading information about.
Yeah, no, I agree. They all. But I mean, isn't this like this isn't any good new news, right?
Well, the point is that the reason I decided to share this is that the people who talk about censorship and like to attack the left for it were starting to show that they are for censorship. They were always for censorship. It's just that how can the world can canceling people who are critical of Israel, how's that not censorship? That's basically Rod Grimes' point too from politics here, and the fact that they criticize AOC, but then they're acting like AOC. I mean, what shall I say? AOC started acting like the right. A lot of the especially a lot of the cheerleaders of AOC who favors deep platforming are acting like the right that invented the cancel culture to begin with. And here's the thing about AOC. Now, AOC saying, I remember she made her little cringe speech about how glad she was Tucker Carlson was deplatformed. And I'm thinking, okay, um, who did the deplatforming? It was Fox News that fired his ass. Well, arguably, Fox News is worse than Tucker Carlson himself in a lot of ways. And I'm no fan of Tucker Carlson, but she favors censorship more than she favors Medicare for all. I mean, it's like one of the reasons I washed my hands out of this hope that I found in AOC that I projected. But the right wing, the neocons, and all of these people, the facts don't care about your feelings, Ben Shapiro types, wants to cancel people out. And, that's why I like the story that he shared.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I can see it. I mean, yeah. I've always known that they're two different sides of the same coin. One issue they'll, one will cry, censorship and free speech, and then another issue they'll be the complete opposite. So it just depends on what it is. And I've always known that. But yeah, no, that's a really good little showcase of the hypocrisy between both sides right there with an example. So,
and there's a lot of people in the middle in this country. They're not bad people, but they're ideologically kind of centristy, and they are convinced that overall that the left is more censorious than the right, and the right are these great harbingers for free speech, and it's just not the case. Right. And it just bothers the hell out of me that the right wing gets away with I'm a free speech alpha, but they're going to go cancel people that they don't like,
Yep.
And still argue that I'm a free speech absolutist, and I'm a free speech alpha.
Right. Yeah, no, they definitely do that. I mean, Ben Shapiro will go around saying free speech, but then, they're excited about a lot of the left-leaning Twitter accounts being banned the other day, and he's totally okay with that. But when it's his people, he's not okay with it. So I see it all the time on both sides, all the time. So it's good to see that other people are starting to see it and are showing examples of it for their scope of people to start seeing as well. Because once it's literally in our faces now, so they're not hiding it. They're saying the quiet things out loud, and we're seeing the hypocrisy. I mean, John Fetterman is a really good example of the hypocrisy that's going on. So, I mean, yeah, it's cool to see that to me, I'm just like, oh, yes, I know this, but then I have to remember that there's probably people out there that do not know this kind of stuff. So I've got to be excited to see that there's another set of people that are figuring it out. So
absolutely. Yep. So and as I said, I enjoy listening. I enjoy listening to politics. He's got a good show. He's based in LA, by the way.
Oh, he is?
Yes, he's in LA.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. It's so weird to see all like these like lumberjack mountain men looking motherfuckers, and they're all out in LA. Like, okay, you're not really a mountain man, you're just a hipster. I get it.
I've been called a hipster. One of my coworkers one day called me a hipster. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you hang out in coffee shops, you go to record shops buying obscure records, and you had the black glasses. I mean, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Do you want to go outside? Yep.
Yeah.
Are you getting mad at the kitties? Do you want to go outside? He's trying to fight. All right, so let's get into the next one. Let me read the comment section. Jimi offering 2 tickets to the gun show. Whatever, I just have a tank top on. My gun show. There you go. I'm not strong, but I can pick up my own body weight on a pole, bitches. Kitty, yes, SA Kitty's here. The right pretends they're for free speech, and the neolibs don't even pretend they care about free speech. The entire establishment wants censorship, though. Yep, that's exactly right. Absolutely. Willie's black rim glasses, black shirt. He's saying that your black rim glasses and your black shirt is a vibe. I agree. You're definitely a vibe, especially with like the silver hair too. It's such a fucking vibe. It is. It really is.
It's been me all my life, except for the gray hair. That it's just because I'm turning old.
That's right. Hey, you know what? Rock that shit, because there's women like me out there that are paying hundreds of dollars to get our hair that color. So
Well, I look at it this way. Yeah, I mean, if it gives me that distinctive, kind of elegant look, I guess I can go with it. So,
yep. It's almost got like that. It's almost like a mobster / punk rock vibe to it.
if I wear the right clothes, I can almost give an Andy Warhol vibe sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't Andy Warhol like a creep though?
He was eccentric. I don't know of any proclivities that he has that was that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm getting him mixed up with like some other dude. Is Andy Warhol was like an artist or something?
Yeah, Andy Warhol was an artist. Yeah,
Didn't he do the painting where it's Marilyn Monroe in like 4 different colors?
absolutely.
Oh, I thought he had like some kind of weird obsession with like younger women or something. He was like
No,
some
he was
good boy.
gay. He was
Oh, he
gay.
was gay. Is that why he had
Yeah,
something people didn't like him? Oh, okay. Well, then that's cool. I don't care about that. That's awesome.
yeah. Well, he's known for the Campbell soup can, Brillo pass, a lot of the a lot of things like that and everything.
Yeah, I remember the Campbell soup can painting thing. That was really cool. Yeah, he was definitely like started a new generation of art, which was really, really interesting. So,
And of course, he promoted the Velvet Underground in the 1960s, even though nobody knew who they were at the time.
okay. He was just a weird person too, right? Because like when people play him in movies, they always play him as like this it's kind of like just this weird, creepy dude.
Like in the movie The Doors, I mean, he's like
Yeah.
he hand on the phone and say, "You can talk to God," something along those lines.
Right, shit like that. Okay, okay. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Okay,
yeah.
makes sense.
I actually tell you a funny story real quick. I saw the movie I Shot Andy Warhol with some friends of mine 20 years ago, a lesbian couple who hated Andy Warhol, and it was just a really weird situation because I'm an Andy Warhol fan. They were anti Andy Warhol, and what was the name of the lady that shot him? I cannot think of her name. Gosh. Anyway, she was a little bit crazy. She was kind of a turf at her time. She started it was the Scum Manifesto, Society for Cutting Up Men. I mean, and I mean she was kind of transphobic and everything back in the 1960s and all that. Yeah. You ever seen the movie I Shot Andy Warhol?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. He was so, I mean, he was like mentally scarred from getting shot. I mean, he kept on envisioning her once after he recuperated. So, poor guy.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next one. So, this is actually new news from today. So I kind of just got this last minute. A man named Gonzalo Lira passed away today in a Ukrainian prison. The video that I found, because it was so new, was the only thing I could really find was Tucker Carlson talking about this guy from a long time ago, or a while back, when he got arrested. I'm trying to, I guess he like criticized the war in Ukraine. He was on the Ukrainian kill list. He's an American citizen. He's been held in jail, in prison in Ukraine over his criticisms of the war, which I thought that usually isn't. I mean, he's an American citizen. I didn't think that that should happen to him, but I guess some things have been getting worse. He wrote a letter recently to one of his family members saying that he had like pneumonia in both lungs and like something else back in October, November, and they haven't done anything since like a couple of weeks ago, and so they kind of ignored and neglected his health that was getting worse in there, and I guess he died today. So this is yeah, exactly, Warren. They just basically neglected him. So this was pretty much what I could find as of this morning about his story and who he was, so we can kind of learn about this guy.
In February of 2022, the Russian military rolled across the border of eastern Ukraine. And then for the next year and a half, the American media and political establishment spent, what's fair to say, a disproportionate amount of time talking about Ukraine and America's obligation to support Ukraine, pay for Ukraine's military and its government, and of course, support it morally, and above all, to hate Russia. And most Americans obeyed. Politicians wore Ukrainian flags on their lapels. American citizens put Ukrainian flags on their mailboxes and on their bumper stickers. But one thing most Americans didn't get a lot of was actual news from Ukraine. What was it like to live there? What was happening inside that country that we were supporting and paying for? Well, you couldn't really know because there's virtually no coverage of it. But on social media, there were a few people reporting in what seemed like a pretty honest way from within Ukraine. And one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira. He lived in Ukraine for quite some time, and he posted, particularly on Twitter, his accounts of what life was like there and his view of how the war was going. And so for people who are interested in what was happening, he was worth watching. Here's one of his reports.
The Russian economy is sailing on. European economy, people are starting to die of hypothermia in the UK because they don't have access to the cheap energy of Russia from before. See? And so everything that the West has thrown at the Russians has boomeranged right back at them. And so now they're panicking and they're trying to figure out a way out of this situation. And they figured that if they throw more tanks, it'll help. It won't help. The Ukrainians, rather, they had like something like 2,000 tanks before the start of this conflict. You think a couple of hundred now is going to help? I mean, why are they asking them? Because those 2,000 tanks are gone. That's basic, you know? And so what, a couple of hundred, maybe 300 tanks, is that going to change the outcome of the conflict? No, it won't. The Russians are just going to destroy them. In the West, all of the propaganda has said that Zelensky is a hero, a Winston Churchill figure, and the Kiev regime are just angels and stuff like that. No, they're bloodthirsty murderers. The Kiev regime. I'm telling you right now.
So he made a couple of points. One, Russia is not losing the war with Ukraine. Russia is winning. Two, the Russian economy, despite the sanctions from the United States and Western Europe, and despite the war, has not been destroyed. The Russian economy is actually fine, and in some ways it's improving. It's becoming more independent, more commodities-based, and that's an advantage for a country with a lot of commodities like Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. economy and U.S. military power has suffered as a result of the war. Now, Lira, to the extent that people responded to him in this country, in our media, was denounced as a Russian puppet and a liar and a propagandist. But in fact, now we can admit he was right. What you just heard was true, factually true. Russia is not losing the war in Ukraine. Russia is winning. Russia's economy is fine. Ours is not. So what happened to Gonzalo Lira? Well, for posting that video and others like it, he was arrested by the government of Ukraine, the one that we pay for, the supposed democracy that we support for moral reasons against the autocracy of Russia. He was arrested, and then he was let out, and then he tried to leave the country. He tried to leave Ukraine. Here's a video, his last video. This is Gonzalo Lira.
I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die. And so I decided that the smart thing was take my chances in terms of getting across the border. Right now, I'm maybe 5 kilometers away from the border with Hungary. Over the last 2 days, I rode my bike just about 1,300 kilometers from Kharkov all the way here to the border. And my intention is to cross the border, get to Hungary, and in Hungary, I'm going to ask for political asylum. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next couple of hours, or I will be arrested again, and God knows what will happen to me.
He never made it. 5 miles from the Hungarian border, 5 kilometers rather from the Hungarian border, he was arrested. Gonzalo Lira remains in prison tonight, a political prisoner.
There you go. So political prisoner, didn't make it to the border. Ooh, yeah, okay, I'm not muted. I thought I was muted. God damn, I'm a mess. Didn't make it to the border, was arrested, and has passed this morning due to apparently looks like neglected health complications while he was in a Ukrainian prison, which is fucked up.
Sort of like what the U.S. and Britain's doing to Julian Assange, Belmarsh right now, neglecting him.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
I agree, Warren. Yeah, like we don't live in a cartoon. We live in a snuff film, literally. Genocides, critics getting murdered in prisons, and yeah, it's just, man. Stop reading books, stop watching movies with good endings, because it's all just a fucking fantasy. Nobody has a good ending. Good endings are not reality anymore. So
yeah, it really fucked up and all that. I have to keep repeating to people that the Ukraine is not this victim style liberal fledgling liberal democracy trying to defend themselves from those mean old Ruskies. I mean, just there's a lot of shit that's really fucked up about the Ukraine. Not a criticism of the Ukrainian people any more than what the fucked up shit that Israel's doing. This is not an attack on Jewish people. Same thing. We're talking about governments doing shitty things, and what was done here with his death was one more proof about how fucked up the Ukraine is.
Mm-hmm.
And I always add the article "the" in front of Ukraine because that's what it used to be called. And the reason I like to do it because it pisses off Bosch. By the way, if you add the article "the" in front of Ukraine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, he gets triggered by it. So I make damn sure when I talk about that place, I always say I never say Ukraine. I may say Ukrainian, but I never say Ukraine. I say the Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pay attention, but there is some weird stuff going on in the chat right now. Apparently, Warren is trying to sell a dirty mattress to somebody in the comments section titled "The Tunneling Jew," who apparently lives under Warren's house right now. This is so stupid.
I just found out about that tunnel, and
it's so stupid. It's so dumb. So apparently, what it is this Jewish community that had their church thing started building an underground tunnel to this like rundown, shut down bath house or something like that, bath place for females, so that they could use it themselves. And they got in trouble for it, and they fucking threw a temper tantrum and a fucking riot. And that shit was so funny to see, like, all these like Jewish people with their like hat and their little curly sideburns, like fighting with like
community.
Yeah, the Hasidic Jews like fighting with like police officers with like New York accents and shit. Like, it was just the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met some Hasidic Jews. It was at an anti-war protest. It was called A20 in 2002 in DC, and they were marching with the Palestinians. These folks and everybody was like looking at each other, seeing them marching with the Palestinians, and everybody was like cheering, "Yay!" They were rock stars for a couple of minutes there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was the whole tunneling Jew thing was funny. There's been some interesting memes out there from it. Even my own like 19-year-old daughter is sending me stuff. Like, there was a picture somebody had made where like Hasidic Jews were coming out of the sewers, and it was the promo photo for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it said the Teenage Mutant Ninja Jews or something like that. It's been nuts. The internet has been off the hook with the memes for that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, just interesting, and all of that.
How did they fit
A
into
lot
those
of
tunnels with
conspiracy
those
theories.
big hats?
There's conspiracy theories that you're going to be hearing from now on because of that damn tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so what you got next on here?
Let's see. Let's go with speaking of Russia, let's go and the Ukraine. Let's go with the gray zone. Ukraine insider Putin wanted negotiations to West Coast war. Let's go with that.
All right, you got it. Here we go. Come on.
This happened recently. We had yet another insider. I've lost track of how many people now have admitted that there was a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine in early April 2022 that could have shut this whole war down, prevented all these tens of thousands of deaths that have ensued since. But this Russia-Ukraine peace deal was blocked by the U.S. And here is a Ukrainian ambassador who was part of the Ukrainian delegation. He was there in Istanbul. And in his telling, Putin went out of his way to make peace. And they signed an agreement. They had a deal in Turkey. But that's when, as we all know now, Boris Johnson came over to Kyiv and told Zelensky to keep fighting. And this ambassador's name is Alexander Chalyi. I can't pronounce it. I apologize to Ukrainian speakers. But here he is becoming the latest person to admit that there was indeed a peace deal in Turkey, which was blocked.
I was in that moment in the group of Ukrainian negotiators. We negotiated with Russian delegation practically 2 months, in March and April, the possible peaceful settlement agreement between Ukraine and Russia. And we, as you remember, concluded so-called Istanbul communique. And we were very close in the middle of April, in the end of April, to finalize our war with some peaceful settlement. For some reasons, it was postponed. But to my mind, Putin, this is my personal view, Putin in 1 week after started his aggression in 24 February last year, very quickly understood he did mistake and tried to do everything possible to conclude agreement with Ukraine. And this communique, it was his personal decision to accept the text of this communique, which totally far away from the initial proposal of Russia, ultimatum proposal of Russia, which they put before the Ukrainian delegation in Minsk. So we managed to find a very real compromise. So Putin really wanted to reach some peaceful settlement with Ukraine. It's very important to remember.
Okay. So how many times did he say there Putin really wanted to reach a peace deal? He did everything possible. And then he says very briefly that for some reasons it was postponed, or he doesn't detail that part. But we know what happened there. That's when, as I said before, Boris Johnson came over and told Kyiv that we're not going to back you up on this, that to sign this deal, Ukraine needed security guarantees from the US and the UK. And Zelensky was told by Boris Johnson, no, we're not going to give you that. You have to keep fighting Putin. And because Zelensky followed Boris Johnson's orders, that's when Ukraine got this massive new influx of NATO weaponry, tens of billions of dollars. You know, those big packages that everybody in Congress on the Democratic side voted for, including the squad, to reward Zelensky for his obedience in blocking this peace deal, in which this Ukrainian diplomat admits Putin did everything possible to make peace. And the U.S. did everything possible to prolong this war because their only goal was not to defend Ukraine. It was to bleed Russia. And it newly calls into question all the statements from Antony Blinken, who said that there's no meaningful evidence of that Russia wants diplomacy. Well, this is more meaningful evidence that we've just seen right now from a Ukrainian official who was there. And the New York Times recently came out with more, saying that Putin has been floating the idea of a ceasefire since September 2022. And all throughout that time, the policy has been the same. Just keep sacrificing Ukrainians as cannon fodder to bleed Russia.
And what we've been seeing from the Ukrainians is in their messaging kind of threats against the U.S. If you do not authorize more aid, I mean, this was Zelensky's message when he last arrived in Washington, authorize more aid, give us more weapons, or we will attack deeper into Russia and escalate. And so these attacks that we saw in Belgorod on a family Christmas festival with MLRS rockets, which are less precise than Russia's Kinzhal missiles, for example, in which they attacked civilians deliberately in the center of a Russian city, was an attempt to drag the U.S. back in. And what happened? It led to a massive escalation by Russia against military targets inside Ukrainian cities. And the U.S. continues to back away. The U.S. and Russia's demonstrating that their arsenal is full and that they can hit back hard and escalate. And after the failed counteroffensive, I don't see how Ukraine can escalate to the point where there will be World War III unless they do something even more dramatic than they're doing, because at the same time, Russia is still practicing escalation management with these strikes. I mean, they're not going to just send their entire military into Kiev, but they are. It looks like they're starting an offensive of their own. So I think right now the more imminent threat, I mean, I think we've been in World War III for some time, and Syria was sort of the beginning. If you consider that all the forces at play inside Syria, it was at least a preview. And World War III will not play out the way World War II did. But the more imminent threat right now is a regional war, which Israel has every intention of instigating.
That's actually an interesting take. The fact that we've been in a World War III, it's just not kind of, the stage hasn't been set the same as it has been in the past. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you think about World War II, there were events that were a precursor, such as the Spanish Civil War, and if we're in we're headed to World War III. It might be a precursory stage of it. One could look at it that way, and and I get into it with people when they're all hell bound on defending the Ukraine again, as if they're innocent and they're like the victim and all of that, and having to tell people about everything from 2014, and actually even prior to 2014, going back to the late 1990s, when all these countries started joining NATO in the former Eastern Bloc, and the promise was made to Russia that they were not going to be surrounded by NATO states, and now they're surrounded by NATO states. And honestly, I could see where the line was drawn in the sand with the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want the Ukraine to belong to NATO. I mean, I don't want NATO to exist, but that's beside the point there. But
right. Right. No, yeah. I agree. That's crazy. Okay, so another new news. Last night, U.S. bombed Yemen in response to the Houthi pirate attacks that have been happening. This kind of makes me a little bit angry, because we are now not only expanding this little war, but we are bombing countries for stopping trade. So economic war responses now, which to me is it pisses me off even more, than as mad as I already am about the regular bombing of civilians and things like that. This really, it's just another additional layer on top of, now you're going to be bombing countries because they're doing economic challenges on you guys. If anything, what those Houthi pirates did was actually the right thing for them to do, hold these ships and not allow them to bring weapons and stuff like that to Israel. So to me, this is just like I said, another layer that just pisses me off about the imperialism of westernized countries.
It does not, but we'll go with it. What's up first for us today?
Well, Amber, the United States began bombing Yemen last night in retaliation to Houthi rebel attacks on Western shipping in the Red Sea. Houthis, who back Hamas in its current war against Israel, said 5 of their fighters were killed in the strikes and vowed revenge. In a statement yesterday, President Biden said these targeted strikes are a clear message that the United States and our partners will not tolerate attacks on our personnel or allow hostile actors to imperil freedom of navigation in one of the world's most critical commercial routes.
Now, some members of Congress are already pushing back against the unauthorized bombing. Representative Cori Bush wrote on Twitter last night, "At POTUS can't launch airstrikes in Yemen without congressional approval. This is illegal and violates Article 1 of the Constitution. The people do not want more of our taxpayer dollars going to endless war and the killing of civilians. Stop the bombing and do better by us." Representative Ro Khanna also called Biden's bombing unconstitutional during a CNN appearance last night. Let's watch.
Well, I mean, what I've said is he should have come, as the Constitution requires, to Congress. And that was echoed in a bipartisan way by Senator Mike Lee, Representative Jonathan Jackson, and many other senators and congresspeople. The Constitution requires that if there is not an imminent threat of self-defense, that he has to come to Congress. And here we know by your own reporting that this has been going on since December. He's assembled an entire international coalition. He certainly should have come to Congress so that we can discuss whether this actually could put more American troops at risk. I'm concerned about retaliation in Iraq and whether it could draw us into a Middle East war. And I believe that he did not follow the Constitution.
So here we have several members of Congress, including some Republicans as well, calling this unconstitutional. I guess the debate is whether or not this would be considered an act of defense under the War Powers Act, which would not require notification or authorization of Congress. I actually think the Biden administration has a decent case here. In addition to the scores of missile attacks being launched by the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea, they've also attempted to board several vessels. That was actually one of the impetuses for the first strike that the U.S. carried out against the Houthis, was because they were attempting to basically behave as pirates and take over some of these vessels. So I don't know. What do you think, Jessica? Do you think that this is an act of defense?
I mean, if we're going to complain that this is unconstitutional, where was Congress for so many airstrikes that happened under the Obama administration, so many military operations that happened under Trump? Now, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says that Congress has the authority to declare war. Now, the War Powers Resolution clarified what the legal parameters are in 1973, but said the president has 48 hours to notify Congress of emergency military actions. And I think that it's time that, you know, we really question the War Powers Resolution in its constitutionality in itself, but also is the president really acting in an emergency scenario? Or is U.S. territory under attack? Are our armed forces under attack? Is U.S. shipments of weapons to Israel covered under the War Powers Resolution? I'm not sure that it is. I'm not a lawyer, but my basic sense of this situation is that, you know, Hamas doesn't have a formal military. Palestinians don't have a formal military or government to defend themselves with. And so you have many attacks of Israel on the Palestinians, and you have the Houthis supporting the Palestinians by attacking U.S. shipments of weapons. So those weapons can't be launched on the Palestinians. We already have the death toll over 23,000 Palestinians just since October 7th. So we're in a situation where the United States wants to protect the weapons going to Israel, which is using them too, as the International Court of Justice is currently hearing a case on genocide. And so it's a situation that has the legal lines blurred and the moral lines blurred. And I think, you know, Ro Khanna and Cori Bush standing up and saying, hey, this is unconstitutional, we should question this. It's about time we have the power to declare war and decide on military actions back to Congress if it's not an emergency situation, which to me, this seems like it's not.
I agree. I would disagree, just because when they are launching these missile strikes, they're not nonviolent missiles. They're not just a signal. They're actually trying to hit these ships. Luckily, the United States has the capacity, of course, to defend itself against these missiles. But they are threatening American lives. They're threatening the lives of the people who are on these ships, as well as other countries, by the way, who are in the Red Sea, and have also tried to board these vessels as well. So I don't think the United States is not acting in an emergency situation. It seems to me like this is a reasonable response, especially considering one of the core responsibilities of the United States military in shipping lanes is to protect freedom of trade and protect the free movement of vessels.
I will say, I don't know if there's such thing as a nonviolent missile, Amber. I don't know if those exist, but I do think what the rebels are trying to do is defend Palestine by attacking the ships that are carrying weapons going to Israel, which have been used indiscriminately, not just against Palestinians, but against regions that they believe are held by Hezbollah, by neighboring countries. Even on days when there's a ceasefire between Gaza and Israel, they have committed airstrikes in the region against Syria. And so it's really a regional conflict, and we have to understand it that way. And if the United States is going to be involved to the tune of billions of dollars of military aid to Israel, there needs to be some recognition of the risk of just that initial act of arming Israel with enough weapons to so quickly kill 23,000 Palestinians, dropping 2,000-ton bombs, the largest bombs dropped since the Vietnam War, the United States attacking Vietnam with bombs of that magnitude. And so it's a situation where I think this is an act of retaliation against the United States that should cause our leaders to reflect on their support of Israel and how that's upset the international community, how over 90% of the nations represented in the General Assembly have called for a ceasefire. I think the United States is making themselves a villain in the global stage by supporting Israel at this point. And that really comes with the risk of maybe if you're trying to get weapons to someone who's using them to bomb civilians, they might try and stop those weapons from getting there with violent missiles.
My point about the nonviolent missiles was sort of tongue in cheek because I've seen some people talking on social media about the fact that the Houthis had not killed anyone. And so therefore, basically, we should not be too worried about the missile strikes. So that was kind of what I was getting at. Obviously, I don't actually think that there are violent versus nonviolent missiles. But I wanted to talk a little bit about.
But see, that's the problem, though, is that the Houthis haven't killed anyone. They haven't hurt anyone, even when they pirate these ships and take over these vessels and stop the traffic. They're not killing anyone, but you went out and sent a buttload of bombs into Yemen because of it. Like, I don't know. It seems like our presidents ever since 9/11 have just had way too much unfettered power when it comes to war crimes and doing war to other countries. And we've lost a lot of checks and balances when it comes to that kind of stuff, including the congressional approval of wartime. Because I'm sorry, but I don't see these Houthis stopping military items going to Israel have anything to do with the safety of me as an American. If anything, I'm pissed off that a lot of this money is going to that in the first fucking place. So it's all just a buttload of bull crap.
Yeah, the office of the presidency at the end of the day is way too powerful. It should have always been any military eventualism needs Congress should always be met with Congress and the way that the checks and balances were working at one point. And this whole thing could be stopped right now if Israel would just do the fucking ceasefire.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's easy for Israel. I believe if Israel did the ceasefire, I don't think that anybody would be attacking Israel.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So
we'd all just be sitting here complaining that Palestine needs to be free once a year, like we have been doing.
Yeah. Or every couple of months, we'll get it all out of our systems and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, on a more comedic note, Tulsi Gabbard for VP. Rumor swirls that Gabbard may join RFK ticket from Ryson.
Oh, wow. Good to know. All right.
Well, before we get started, I'm going to tell you, if it happens, I made that prediction a while back.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh.
So if it comes into fruition, y'all know where you heard it first. I've been saying it for probably the last 5 or 6 months that I could really foresee RFK having Tulsi Gabbard as his running mate. I kind of joked with Nikki when I interviewed her a couple of months ago. I said, well, Robert Kennedy's basically the Tulsi Gabbard of 2024 without the sex appeal.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear your prediction come to possibly being true.
Yeah,
VP pick and former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Has she entered the chat? One user posted, a source with connections to the Robert Kennedy Jr. campaign has told my X group of Kennedy 24 supporters that his rumored VP announcement date happens to coincide with his trip to Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, if this tidbit is true, then we can absolutely expect and assume Tulsi Gabbard will be the vice presidential choice of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. With her embrace of the center right these last few months, this very well could be a safe move for the Kennedy campaign. But just this morning, Gabbard announced a new partnership with Twitter or X. Let's watch.
Free speech is something that a lot of us have taken for granted throughout our lives. It is fundamental to our rights we have as Americans. Unfortunately, we live in a time where free speech is under attack. Lifting up your voice in dissent or challenge or questioning or even having a dialogue and debate is not only discouraged, it can be cause for retaliation or cancellation or censorship. We must defend our right to free speech.
Now, RFK Jr. continues to be a crow on the side of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, as he seems to be the strongest third-party candidate since Ross Perot, while former President Trump still leads Biden overall. In Arizona, RFK has a respectable 10% support, in Florida 9%, in North Carolina 11%, and in Michigan 9%. RFK is even putting up solid numbers in places where Biden leads. In Virginia, RFK Jr. has 14% approval. Those numbers come from both Biden and Trump, as without RFK Jr. in the race, Trump and Biden both gain 7% support. So he's stealing equally from both candidates there. But the big news here is a potential Tulsi Gabbard VP. Let me put this to you. I understand why that would be very exciting to the 10% of the public that already likes RFK Jr. Is it broadening the coalition at all to pick someone who is so kind of occupying the same online and rhetorical space, a lot of issue overlap with respect to some of the independent COVID critiques of the deep state type moves, critiques of war? Very, very similar space. Is it actually going to improve his chances and generate excitement here?
Look, I see what you're saying. There is so much overlap. One wonders if it's a missed opportunity to bring in new people. But Tulsi Gabbard, extremely popular with a lot of conservative voters, audiences, et cetera. She's on Fox News a lot. I believe she's a Fox News contributor now. She's well known to the right. She obviously comes before that from the Bernie Sanders left, from your own worlds. She has, I think, a number of political positions that are she might not see it that way, but you would probably see as very estranged from those views. So I don't know that would bring in all that many people from the left, but I could see her peeling off some Trump-type people, frankly. There's a lot of love for her in conservative media. I think going beyond what was just obviously there was appreciation for RFK Jr. in conservative media when it looked like he was just kind of hurting Biden from within the Democratic coalition. As soon as he moved out, that it was like, whoa. Remember what this guy said about the Second Amendment? Remember how he feels about environmental regulation? I don't know. Tulsi is pretty beloved. And she might get some favorable coverage. And then obviously, I do think it seems like they're pretty in sync on where RFK Jr. wants to focus now on COVID tyranny and mandates. Frankly, even their foreign policy seems kind of in sync with the,
but that cuts
non-intervention
both ways.
On Ukraine, but a full-throated defense of Israel.
Yeah, exactly. That cuts both ways, because I do think that Tulsi Gabbard might get more scrutiny for her, frankly, inconsistent views on Israel. She brands herself as someone who's against the warmongers, who's against money flowing out of the door to these regime change wars. This is what she often calls and often talks to them about, but feels very differently about Israel. Much like RFK Jr., Max Blumenthal has challenged Tulsi Gabbard to a debate on the issue of Israel-Palestine, which she has declined to take up on. And I do think that once she's in the spotlight, it might draw more attention to the inconsistencies within RFK Jr.'s own political program that drove so many people on the left who once supported him away, just like so many people on the left who once supported Tulsi Gabbard have changed their mind as she's kind of reinvented herself politically.
I think this will further drive away people on the left if they were interested in RFK Jr. I think that was kind of happening anyway, given that there are other more down the line left kind of people in the race, either within the Democratic side, like Marianne Williamson and Cenk Uygur, or the Green Party candidate, or Cornel West. There's a lot of places for the really left person to go for this, heterodox, some formerly left views, maybe very concerned about COVID, this foreign policy view taking from the right. I think this is actually a strong move to lean into that strategy. And I could see the RFK Tulsi ticket pulling even more from the right. Now, we should say this is just a rumor. It's a good rumor. If he's going to announce while he's in Hawaii, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that Tulsi is actually signing up to do this because, like I said, she's a Fox News deal. She's just announced this partnership with Twitter that we just played that clip of. So that doesn't sound like gearing up for another foray into politics, but anything's possible.
So many presidential candidates get this accusation lobbed at them. Is this just about a book deal? So many presidential candidates do have books coming out. So, those things aren't mutually exclusive. Campaigns are expensive. You have to fund them. Not everyone is a billionaire candidate like a Bloomberg or a Steve Phillips even is, I think, a billionaire. If not Dean Phillips, not a multi-millionaire. I'm pretty sure he's a billionaire. So, that's not such a criticism. But if this just is a branding exercise, it's such a good branding exercise. If I were judging this just on optics as opposed to whether or not it expands the political coalition, I'd give it an A+. So I am scrutinizing it from that perspective. It is also worth noting, focusing on the new deal with Twitter X, and we'll talk about this in more depth in a different segment, but Twitter is under significant criticism for launching a purge against left-leaning accounts that have been very, very critical, large accounts that have been critical of U.S.
I think they're starting to get off track now and starting to get into the X left-leaning purge of accounts and stuff. What do you have to say about them two running together?
Well, as everybody knows about me, I was as a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, and again in 2020, I wanted a Bernie Sanders Tulsi Gabbard ticket, but it made sense in the context of 2019, 2020 Tulsi Gabbard when she was more left leaning. It makes sense, but it doesn't appeal to me. Robert Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, it's like. They're both independent, but still manages to embrace the establishment. And so, I guess if somebody wants to vote for independents who are pro-establishment, what better choice than Kennedy Gabbard? Of course, there's no way I could vote for Robert Kennedy at this point. Maybe when he first started running, in spite of not being perfect, there was a few things that he said that was quite novel. But if he's cheerleading genocide in Gaza, saying with Tulsi, what's the point? They're just like the next Democrat or the next Republican, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Yeah, that's what my point was going to be, is like, this sucks. This is like the first year that I'm kind of disappointed in the third party pick for this election season. This is kind of the first time where I'm probably not even going to vote because of the picks that they're even offering us aren't even that good. I mean, at least the last couple elections, third party, Green Party picks or whatever were at least semi decent. There was something there, but yeah, it's no matter how much, it's so weird, is no matter how much I feel, at least in my own personal experience of this country, how I feel like a lot of regular everyday citizens are going further and further left, and the thought processes is further and further left. But these elections it just keeps going more status quo, right leaning, neoliberal. Like, it just feels like no matter how progressive the people of our country are becoming, the powers that be are actually becoming more status quo than they ever have, and it's going the opposite way of how we're all thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, all these politicians from both parties are bought and paid for at the end of the day, and
Right.
the corruption is so deep that as hard of a time as I give Bernie and AOC now, and they deserve to be getting a lot of scrutiny for them not standing up the way they need to a point. Their hands are still tied. I still think that they could fight harder than they have been fighting, but I think that there is maybe a small little bit of empathy in the fact that their hands are tied. And as I said, at one point, again, with Robert Kennedy, I would have been okay with a Robert Kennedy Tulsi Gabbard ticket maybe a year ago. Now, I mean, I just kind of like,
See, I'm so against it. Like, to me, as soon as even if RFK even if he was running 5 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever, like, I still would not be okay with it, because like, the Kennedys have all had their chances of being in office, and there was already a Kennedy as a president before. I feel like it's just a bunch of fucking nepotism to me. I fucking hate it. It drives me. I'm just waiting for like one election where somebody gets elected that's not either friends with somebody who's already been president or related to somebody who's already been fucking president. Like, the Bushes drive me absolutely insane. It reminds me of like Queen Elizabeth and all of her fucking family with the Bushes, and then with the friendships and all that with, like, Hillary and Trump, they were all friends and shit, and now the Kennedys, it's a bunch of nepotism, and I'm sick of it. I'm so fucking sick of it. I want some new fucking blood, some new opinions, some new voices, somebody who doesn't have a fucking history of family politics, status quo, keeping corruption, multi-million dollars in offshore banking and nobody knows about it because your parents worked in the government. Like, I'm so sick of it. I'm so done.
Me too. Me too. And as far as the third party candidates, I'm like, this is the weirdest election, because in the past, at least when there was a third party to vote for, I have the choices were kind of just, it was a little more focused as my choice, whether I'm voting for Ralph Nader or and I've kind of alternated between Green Party and Socialist Party since the 1990s. And but now I'm looking at the 2024 election, and got Cornel West, who, at least on policy he's good, but he's kind of all over the place. Can't decide which fucking party he wants to run in, or whether he wants to run as an independent. And I doubt he's going to be on the ballot at this point in North Carolina. He may be, but I doubt it. And then you got Jill Stein. I'm no stranger to voting for her, but she's going to be there. And then you have Claudine Dela Cruz from the PSL, and you got Bill Stodden from the Socialist Party USA. So I'm like, those are the four I'm likely to vote for, but I don't know which of the four I will be voting for on election day, because I don't know who's going to be on the ballot or not by then.
Right. So yeah, I don't know who's going to be on our ballot out here either. I've got no one. I really got no one. This is the first time a third party choices have been just as bad as the main two party choices. This sucks so fucking bad for us.
Actually,
like, at least I could go to my kids and tell them, like, like some of the kids that I know, like my friends' kids and stuff who have been turning 18, I've been telling them, like, don't forget, 2024, we're going to be voting. It's your first time voting. Y'all are going to be of age. It's the election year. I really want you to vote. And now I've been sitting here thinking, like, they really got nobody, man. I'm really throwing them into the lion's den with no weapons whatsoever. This sucks.
Well, I'm thinking about after the 2024 election, I will vote in 2024 this year, but I'm thinking of never voting again with the exception of, let's say, ballot initiatives, constitutional amendments, referendums, I can vote on that because I have a legitimate voice with referendums and
Like down
constitution.
ballot stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have, that's my voice right there, and and I'm okay with voting on that, but I don't know if I could ever vote for another political candidate for office again in in the way that this country is structured. I mean,
Right.
yeah. Look, I know the grass is greener on the other side, and I know that you know, whether we're talking about Norway or whether we're talking about, you know, Cuba or whatever any of us think where socialism is, or societies are more left leaning than America. Do they have their problems? Yes, they do. This is humanity. We all have our problems, but I don't know if they have the problems that we have in terms of when it comes to voting, because I, I don't think other countries work against third parties the way that we do.
I don't think so either. I really don't. I don't think there's any other country that's just as bad as we are with that. The two
Other
party
than a
duopoly
dictatorship.
problem. Yeah.
Dictatorships are probably worse, but that's about it.
Right. Yeah. And then you got Trump's lawyer going around saying that it's legal for him to send the Navy SEAL team to assassinate his opponents or something like that. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I see how it's like overbearing on the news. Like, they're like, oh my God, he wants to assassinate. But his lawyer should have said that's illegal. Like, he should have just said that's illegal. You trying to tiptoe that shit. Like, come on. Are you motherfuckers have been assassinated? Like, I'm sorry, but you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Trump is an idiot. So I mean, there's just no way around that. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, you don't even have to suffer from Trump derangement syndrome to realize that. I mean,
But I mean, that's what makes him scary to me. Like, I mean, I had that thought process for a really long time. Like, Trump's just a clown. He ain't gonna do shit. He's just a nobody. He's just an entertainer. But to me, it feels like that's what's a little bit more terrifying to me, is because he is going to listen to whatever other people tell him because it's going to benefit him. Now, he's working in, you know, the government, which is like, they're like master manipulators. I mean, they literally can control an entire country of regular people. So to me, it seems like they're going to say, hey, you're going to benefit off of this. He's going to go and do it. And it is like somebody was saying in the comments, I think it was Miguel earlier, saying that like we were all, you know, like saying that about Trump, but then, you know, Roe versus Wade didn't get overturned while Trump was in office. He got overturned while Biden is in office. And yes, I completely agree. Biden had just as much time to set that shit into law, all of that stuff during that time. But you cannot forget the fact that while Trump was in office, he put people in the Supreme Court really in a janky way, because that were conservative, to make a conservative majority Supreme Court, to where that subject even got brought up and Roe versus Wade was even brought up. And I'm sorry, but the way that the Supreme Court justices were brought in was really, really fucked up, because right as soon as Obama was getting out of office, they were saying that you cannot put a new Supreme Court in until the new president is brought in, because that's the way that the things are done. And when Trump was in office, they were saying, no, we should get it done. We should put in a Supreme Court now before Trump gets out of office, because that's what, you know, so the hypocrisy there too. So like, yes, I understand that Roe v. Wade got overturned while Biden was in office, but a lot of the stuff, the precursors to that happened while it was under Trump. So Trump is listening to other people telling him what to do that's going to benefit him and his friends, and he's going to go do it. And then this is the outcomes that we get. So yeah, go ahead, blame Biden for that. But Trump is, you know, there is some scary stuff about Trump as well. Like, I don't like either one of them, you know, but, you know, we can't just sit there and go around and be like, Trump's an idiot, Trump's dumb. Like, Trump literally just made our entire Supreme Court justices majority Republican and conservative after how many years of not being that, and trying to get our country to just incremental change to progressivism has been ridiculous. And we just got set back like 50 fucking years from that dude. And I'm sorry, but that's going to be my lifetime that I have to sit here and try to fix this in any way that I know how to as a single human being in this fucking country. So
And
there's my rant.
Yeah, and never forget, even though there might have been less conflict abroad, he did commit some war crimes with the droning. I mean, the massive amount of drones and propping up Saudi Arabia, where the genocide was being committed against the people in Yemen, and the assassination of Qasem Soleimani that took place in early 2020. So, there are people out there that think that he's dovish. I never said he was a dove. I mean, I can name
Right.
some war crimes that he's committed and everything. And a scary thought is, what if he starts to listen to the neocons? Literally, if he comes back to the White House, that will even be a scarier scenario.
Right. His dictator on day one thing is scary. Like I just don't want to know what else would happen if he's president. I just don't. I don't need another 4 years of waking up every day just terrified of what's going on. I still do it today every day, but man, fuck that dude. Man, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't want our country to end up being like a Christian version of Saudi Arabia. I really don't. I'm scared.
No, we don't want to be a Christian Sharia version of Saudi Arabia. We don't want to be Chile under Pinochet. We don't want these things.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Absolutely.
Mm.
Do you have any final words as we're getting close to the
I know.
Yeah.
No, I think
That's
that's it.
that was a quick 2 hours there.
was.
Yeah. I see. You have any plans online or?
Yeah, I'll probably do some streaming this week in the gaming sphere probably. I know I haven't done anything this week at all whatsoever, but I definitely have a lot more time by myself this week, so I will probably be doing some more gaming on there. That's it. On my Twitch. That's it. Go
Yeah,
check it
I'll
out.
probably be streaming a little bit this weekend. I got a few things I want to throw out at everyone, so I'm going to try to, between now and the next 3 or 4 days, I'm gonna try, and if I don't, it's because I'm tired as hell and all that. So, but anyway, um, let me allow me to tell everybody I appreciate y'all coming here, and I'm making this as a special request. If you're watching our program from the Willie Bragg Show, that's great and dandy, but we have a Bragglands channel, and if you haven't subscribed to the Bragglands YouTube page, please do so. We want that page counts. We're trying to grow that page. So I just wanted to make that as a special request to our audience there.
Okay. Awesome. Yes, I agree. Anything else?
Well, something after we close the show, I need to talk to you about something real quick. But
Okay.
no, other than that, I'm good. So I guess I'll let you conclude with your words. I'll conclude with mine.
All right, you got it. Thank you everybody for showing up. Miguel, Warren, I see Hirsch, Rick, whoever the tunneling Jew was. Thanks for keeping it funny. Anybody else that I know I'm gonna miss? I think I saw Chris in here as well. Okay, yeah. Anybody else that I missed? Thank you all for coming in, hanging out, chatting. Thanks for listening to the news. And listening to us do our stupid little rants and shit. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. Remember to stay high, free Palestine. What you got to say?
Oh, well, everyone, subscribe and thank you for your support for the show. And I'll conclude by saying free Julian Assange, free healthcare, free Palestine, and free speech.
Yes. And free weed.
And,